All right, welcome to video number 2. This is on page 62 in your notes. Just a little more practice on solving and then graphing our inequalities. So remember from video number 1, the biggest thing is we can't graph our equations when they look like this. We have to actually solve the inequality first. And then you have this rule up here, right? The rule for solving inequalities. Sorry, can't get my pen to work. There we go. Our rule for solving equalities is that we need to flip the inequality symbol when we multiply or divide by a negative number. It's only that last step when your coefficient for your variable is negative and you need to multiply or divide in order to get rid of it. That's when it gets flipped. So it's not adding or subtracting. It's just in that last multiply or divide step. So we'll practice a few more of these and then you'll get started on your homework. Number 1, 3x plus 2 is less than 4. To solve, just like solving equations, we subtract our 2. We want to isolate our variable, get it by itself. So we subtract 2 from both sides, and then we need to divide both sides by 3. And x is less than 2/3. What's nice is if you're graphing and your graph is not already labeled, you can go and go ahead and label this by thirds, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, and then you can graph right on a line for 2/3 and say that we want all the values that are less than that. Your interval notation, an open parenthesis from negative infinity up to 2/3. 2/3 itself doesn't count, so we use a parenthesis to show that, right? And make sure that on your graph that you have the open circle for 2/3. For each of these, you can go ahead and pause and make sure that you get it all written down into your notes. Otherwise, I'll go on to the next one each time. Number 2, x over 6 plus 2 is greater than -1. So we subtract 2 from both sides, and we get that x over 6 is greater than -3. To undo a division, we want to multiply by 6 on both sides. Our 6's will cancel, and we'll have x is greater than -18. You can put -18 right in the center, an open circle above it, and we want to pick x values that are larger than that, like -16, -14, not -20 or 22. Our interval notation would be an open parenthesis from -18 to positive infinity. Number 3, 2 ways you can solve this. You can distribute, or you could do a division in order to undo that multiplication. I'll go ahead and do the distribution. 4x plus 12 is greater than -24. Then we'll subtract 12 from both sides, leaving us with 4x's are greater than -36. To solve for x, we divide both sides by 4, and x is greater than -9. Open circle on -9, and graph in the positive direction, or in the larger direction. Interval notation is an open parenthesis from -9 up to infinity. And then number 4, we're going to add 5 to both sides, which leaves us with -2x is less than or equal to 24. And then to solve this, we need to divide by a -2. And this is that step, right? When we do this, we have to remember that our inequality symbol is going to switch directions. So it was less than or equal to up above. It is now greater than or equal to. X is greater than or equal to a -12. So we would want a closed circle on the -12. We want to graph the numbers that are above that. -10, -8, not the others. So our interval notation, we want a closed bracket starting at -12, going to infinity, closing that with a parenthesis. All right, we'll move on to page 63. I think there are 4 more practice problems, and then you can get started on your homework, which should be on the following page. Number 5, we need to get rid of that positive 18, so we need to subtract 18, even though it's a subtraction problem, right? What happens is when the 18s are eliminated, we're left with that negative out in front of the 2. And so you have -2x is greater than -14. And just like that problem before, we now have to divide by a negative, which means we need to remember that inequality rule. It goes from being a greater than and it changes into a less than. Negative divided by negative is positive, so x is less than 7. Open circle on the 7, shade in the negative direction, the less than direction. We would have an open interval from -infinity up to 7. Number 6, add 1 to both sides. 5/8 of an x is greater than or equal to 10. To undo that fraction, we'll multiply by another fraction, and we multiply by its reciprocal, right? We flip it. 8/5 instead of 5/8. Put your whole numbers over 1. That'll make your fraction multiplications easier, lead to fewer mistakes. These fractions will just cancel out. You'll have 8 times 5, 40, over 5 times 8, 40, and 40/40 is just 1x. Greater than or equal to 10 times 8 is 80, divided by 1 times 5, which is 5. And 80 divided by 5 would give us that x is greater than or equal to 16. We didn't divide by a negative there or multiply. We multiplied by a fraction, but it was a positive fraction. And so we don't need to worry about switching our inequality symbol. We just shade in the greater than direction. 16, 18, 20. Make sure you're labeling your graph while you're doing these. So we start at 16 and we go up to infinity. That's our interval notation. Last 2. In number 7, we want to get rid of the divided by -3 since everything on this side is being divided by -3. So we multiply both sides by the negative. And as soon as we multiply by a negative, that means this symbol is going to have to switch. So we're left with x plus 15 is less than a positive 21. Then we can subtract 15 from both sides, and x would be less than 6. Open circle on the 6, shading to the left. Interval notation from -infinity to 6. And number 8, our last one, we're going to have -3x is less than 12 after we add 4 to both sides. Divide by a -3, which means we have to switch the direction of our inequality. So we'll have an open circle at -4, and x is greater than -4. So we want all the values that are larger, not the ones that are smaller. So we have an open circle from -4 going up to positive infinity. All right, I know we're going through these quickly, but hopefully you're seeing the connection between this and solving equations. Go ahead and practice on the homework on the next page, and I will be back next time to answer questions and go into this in a little more detail. Good luck, and let me know if you need any help with things.